What's going on, guys? Andrew here, and today I wanted to talk about something I don't usually talk about, and that's how I approach my clean tones, particularly live. I find that playing, a guitar directly into a clean amp, it's just a little too transient, it's a little too spiky, and there isn't quite enough body for me, and it's very interesting. I hear a lot of other players, basically approaching their clean to distorted tones by having a distortion pedal and then turning it on and off and using it in front of a clean amp. I've always been dissatisfied with that. I've always felt like the clean tone is just, like I said, it's a little too transient. It just doesn't quite have that body and that fatness. So I want to share a couple tips and tricks that I use to beef up my clean tone. This is probably nothing that's super new, but I wanted to make a video just to explain my process in the hopes that it could help you out if you're ever in a live situation or a studio situation and need to get a little bit of a fatter clean sound. So right now I am running a Stratocaster with single coil pickups, like 50 style pickups, so they're pretty scoopy and pretty neutral. And I'm running it into a deluxe reverb that's set on 3. It's the vibrato channel, input 1, the volume's on 3, and the bass and the treble are both on 6. This is what that sounds like on the neck pickup. I got a little delay on, I'll turn that off. This is just with a little bit of plate reverb. Now it already has enough helping it. Like if I were to just plug straight into the DI, it would be really tight and brittle or kind of lifeless, very flat. So the amp itself is going to do a little bit of high-end roll-off, a little bit of low-end roll-off, and the tubes add a little bit of that warmth. But I still, like I said, in a live situation, I still really feel like it just doesn't quite have that punch, and it can just be a little just spiky. I don't like the way that it sounds. It kind of pulls me out of my element while I'm playing. Now, one tool that's a great thing to use, particularly for clean tones, is a compressor, and you'll see a lot of people using this, even using a compressor pedal on only their clean tone and then not using it on your distortion tone. That's a difficult thing to do unless you have a switching system or unless you can hit both pedal, one on, one off. So I typically tend to not use a compressor, and I just use a light overdrive and back it down. I'll get into that a little bit later, but let's take the Unit 67, which is a compressor. It's actually a parallel compressor, so the sustain knob brings up the compression, but it keeps some of your dry tone intact. So here it is with no compressor. And we're gonna kick it in. Now, one thing that you may be able to hear is that it brings up the noise floor, so it's going to bring up that buzz that comes with single coil pickups. You can hear that. You can hear it pretty good. It's actually pretty bad in here, but something that you have to live with single coils. But one thing you can do is go to the in-between positions here. Then if you have a reverse wound, a reverse polarity middle pickup, it will cancel out the hum. So. Turn the compressor off. Now it definitely just adds a little bit of sustain, but I think it adds just enough fatness to the clean tone without creating any distortion, because it's still a very clean tone. It also tends to kind of simulate what happens if you were to turn your amp up really loud, which you are not usually able to do, especially with today's clubs. You can't really turn things up too loud. When you turn your amp up really loud, like Stevie Ray Vaughan played a very clean amp but very loud, and he got that incredible sustain and compression and natural compression from the amp without it distorting. It's one of the things that a compressor pedal can do. It's a very, very great thing to have on your pedal board. Now, the other thing you can do is you can add some equalization with an EQ pedal, and this, again, we're keeping things really clean here. We're not adding overdrive, and what I'll talk about in a little bit is adding overdrive and having it kind of read as clean, but we're still very clean here. We're just adding some EQ, we're not even really adding gain necessarily, but to each frequency, we're gonna use an EQ pedal. So this is a mid-range EQ pedal. You can get just a regular EQ. MXR makes a regular EQ. And I find that taking some of the high end out and boosting a little bit of the mids can really fatten up the signal, especially with single coils, and kind of give you the, you know, the illusion of the feeling that the signal's a little fatter than it is. So here it is without the EQ. And then we're gonna put the EQ in. It's adding sustain, and it is hitting the front of the amp a little bit. You know, everything that you add in your signal chain is going to affect the amp in some way, and likely what's really happening is like you're pushing the amp a little bit harder, and you know, if you're not pushing it into distortion just yet, you're pushing it a little further than clean, but not exactly distorted. You're getting somewhere in that sweet spot. And I think that's really what you want to do, aside from just traditional compression. You want to have the amp you know, push a little bit harder and give you a little bit of that, you know, that good saggy feel, that fatness feel. I think that's really, and again, I'm not really talking about funk right now. I'm more talking about like traditional rock and pop clean, where you want the sound to have fatness and to be able to blend maybe even with another distorted guitar or with an acoustic guitar. And you don't really want that like real pencil thin, clean Strat tone. You're looking for a Strat tone that has a little bit of fatness, and an EQ pedal can really help me get there. The third thing, and this is like almost kind of cheating and almost kind of going against what I'm doing here, but it's to add an overdrive pedal. Now, it's still clean. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna take an OD, right now I'm using the Shanks pedal, you're gonna set it relatively low, and this is sort of along the same concept of what people do. If you've ever heard someone say they like to set their amp on the edge of breakup. Edge of breakup is a term basically that, you know, it remains dynamic so that when you dig in, it's more distorted, and when you back off and pick a little bit lighter, it's not distorted. This kind of tone really reads as clean. It really gives you that fatness. I've done this on I've played a bunch of, you know, even cover songs where I called for a clean tone and I played this kind of tone, and no one was, you know, very rarely are people like, your tone's too distorted, or like you're not playing the right kind of, you know, tone, because it really reads as clean. So here's the tone with the ODS one. Let's see. Now, this is based on like a Noble, so it's adding a good amount of bass. It's not really adding very much mids, and I have the tone dialed back a little bit, but you can just hear how much it fattens it up. This is with it off. And then kicking it in. It's hard to tell that anything even happened. And especially when you back the volume down, let's say. Like, is there gain on that? Yes. But does it read as clean, and does it give you that? It gives you for me, it gives me like the top end that I need to kind of cut through and to really hear the front of the note. It'd be better if I wasn't making mistakes, but you get the idea. It gives me the top end of the note, gives me that right nice pick attack, and it gives me like this fatness too. But like, it's still super clean. It's incredibly clean, and that's with an overdrive pedal on. So those are my couple tricks for getting my clean tone, and you know, this is my favorite part of doing these videos, is listening to what you guys think about this. I want you to leave a comment. Let me know what you do to beef up your clean tone, whether it's just playing through the amp, or maybe using a particular kind of amp, or setting your amp on edge of breakup, or do you use a compressor on your clean tone all the time? I know a lot of people that do that, and I've sort of dabbled with that as well. You know, it's really something that I'm always thinking about. I'm always working it out, and every time I get to a gig or a show, you know, I want to make sure that I'm keeping stock of what I'm doing and what's working. But I would love to hear what works for you guys. Please leave a comment. And again, if you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button and subscribe. I'd love for you to subscribe and check out some of the other videos I've made. and maybe I'll see you around. Have a good one.